This is Fred Beck from Fred Beck's Fighting. Today I'm very lucky to joined by Amer Abdallah. So thank you very much for coming on, mate. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Fred. Thanks for having me on.
So what's been going on for you, mate? What have you been up to? I know you've been very busy at the moment, right?
There's a lot going on. There's always some action. There's always some activity going on in the fight world. So we're blessed to be a part of it. Just a lot of things going on. Caleb Plant fighting Canelo Alvarez coming up. Badou Jack's got a big fight coming up in November that we're getting ready for. Vidal Riley's return back to the ring. Lots of great excitement.
Yeah, no, sure we'll talk about that later on in the interview. There's one thing I want to touch on before we go any further. I was on YouTube a couple of months ago, or I think it was about nearly a month and a half ago, and I saw you on Mike Tyson's podcast. So that's quite a big achievement in a way. I know you've been friends with Mike for a while now. What's that like being on Hotboxing and Mike Tyson?
It's great. Like you said, personal friends with Mike, and we've had a great relationship for the past about 10 years. And when we brought Badou over to the Hotboxing podcast, him and Henry were there, and just a great show. They're doing great things. Mike's at a stage of his life now, where he's a living legend, and he should be able to enjoy the things that he loves doing. And that's really just talking to fighters, still being a part of the fight game, and still dabbling in these exhibitions and these kinds of fights. So it was great being there.
Do you see him returning to the ring at all anytime soon, since you're good friends with him?
With Mike?
Yeah. Do you see him returning?
Yeah, I do. I think there's going to be another big fight, and it's going to be announced soon. But time will tell.
Oh, perfect. That's good to know then. Yeah. So one statement you made in the podcast, I just think, not viral, but I saw a lot of it. Bill's Instagrams and the boxing fan pages on Twitter, etc., etc. You said that Caleb Plant is going to outbox Canelo. I know you're close to. I know you know Caleb well. What makes you think that he's going to outbox? Obviously, I'm 50-50. I'm not really too sure he's going to win, but Canelo last fought Billy Joe Saunders, and if I think most people thought everyone's going to outbox Canelo, it'd be Billy, former Olympian. He's one of the best boxers on the planet, pure boxers. So if my kind of opinion on this is, if Billy can't outbox Canelo, how come Caleb can?
Fair question, Fred. First of all, I believe, and I think that most boxing experts would believe that Caleb can outbox Billy Joe, and this is not a stab or a jab at Billy Joe, because I think he's very accomplished, very accredited, and he's well proven. But boxing skill set itself, boxing IQ, I believe Caleb's at a different level. When you go past that, Fred, when you understand the tenacity and the backstory of Caleb Plant, and knowing what he's been through his life, but more importantly, of the kind of guy that he is, Caleb's not going to go in there with any other mindset than either I win or I die. It's going to be those two. And Canelo's never faced a guy like that. And we've seen what happened when he deals with a master boxer like Floyd Mayweather, who can possess and he can pose different problems, such as a lot of movement, great boxing, good jab, good movement, good counter punching. Now Caleb, of course, I'm not here to say Caleb's stronger than Canelo. I'm not saying Caleb's going to knock Canelo out. I'm saying based on pure boxing pedigree and the sweet science of boxing, I think this is going to be a very favorable fight for Caleb.
You say the words that I just noticed. You say, I win or I die. I don't know if Caleb said that before, but we have a lot of boxers saying now, I win or I die. I remember lots of boxers always say, I'd love to be carried out of the ring. That's how I'll go out. But then we did see Billy Joe Saunders' corner pull him out. I know Caleb's obviously Billy would have gone out, but his corner did the right thing and pulled him from the fight. So you think that Caleb will win? Do you think this fight? I know it's been announced for November 6th. Do you know what platform it's on? It's on PBC.
It's going to be on Fox pay-per-view. Yes.
Fox pay-per-view. And do you know if that's do you know how many fights? Because obviously in politics and boxing, lots of the broadcasters won't want Canelo to come on and take their belts, and then DAZN won't want Caleb to come and take Canelo's belts and go back to PBC on Fox. Do you know how many fights Canelo's got with PBC at all, since you're in the manager?
Yeah, I'm not really privy to talk about the details of the fight, but I'm sure that'll all come out. The bottom line is this is going to be the first unified world title fight in the history of boxing. The winner of this fight will be crowned the first WBC, WBA, WBO, IBF Ring Magazine world champion. So in itself, I think that this fight is historic. I think that how it represents is huge for boxing. and it'll go down in history as arguably the biggest fight in super middleweight history.
I know. So what's really good about boxing this year, that'll be the second time this year we'll have a unified world champion. Obviously, earlier in May we had Ramirez and Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor winning by a split decision. Yeah. So I just want to talk. I know I was listening to the Jeff Merriver show. I've had Jeff on it a couple of times, and I was listening to the Caleb Plant one. I was doing pot wash in the pub, so I'm actually listening to that. And I noticed that Caleb said he was a very good kickboxer when he was younger. I know you being doing some bit of kickboxing yourself. How do you think you would have matched up against Caleb Plant when he was? I remember Caleb Plant, he was saying I think he was a 5-time world champion or 5-time national champion kickboxing. I know yourself, you retired undefeated. So how do you think you'd match up against Caleb?
Man, I'd eat Caleb alive. No, listen, we joke about that a lot. And the thing is Caleb was talented at anything he could have done. And when he did get into kickboxing, he did very well. He still, kicks from time to time, and he makes me so nervous every time he kicks. But he does kick. He used to play around, and he's just a natural athlete, and he's great at everything that he does. So I think that on November 6th is going to translate into boxing, in which he has done, and you're going to see a new unified world champion. But touching on your question, Caleb, his transition from kickboxing to boxing was probably the best thing he's ever done. In hindsight, in my career, financially, that would have been the right move. But it is what it is, and this is how life works. And I'm just fortunate and blessed to be able to work with Caleb now at this capacity, and he's going to shock the world on November 6th.
I'll eat Caleb alive. That's quite good. That's quite a good title for the interview there. Yeah. So you were just saying, I remember Caleb in the interview, he was saying that he wanted to move over to boxing because it's the biggest sport, it's more money in it. Do you when you were in your kickboxing career, I know you're retired undefeated, but was there any temptation to move over, switch to boxing full time?
Yeah, there was. And, and that's why I commend Caleb and, his father, Richie, and they kind of saw they were ahead of their time, and they kind of foresaw and were able to see that there isn't any money in kickboxing. So Caleb, he transitioned over. He had that skill set that he has, that special skill set, and he transitioned it over into boxing. And look what he's done. I mean, he has taken the world by storm. Caleb Plant is, aside from his story and his backstory and everything that he brings to the table, kid is just an amazing, amazing athlete. I watched him spar one time, and he did some things that I was just shocked that guys do. He's just very agile, very athletic, very smart, very calculated. And then when you add the fact that he's an absolute dog, and there's a lot of fight in him, that there's it's all a recipe for being a unified, undisputed super middleweight champion, which I firmly believe. And this is nothing against Canelo, or taking anything against Canelo, because Canelo is pound for pound, if not the greatest, one of the top 3 greatest right now. He's going to be a unified champion.
What most impressed? What is about Caleb that impresses you the most then? His footwork, his IQ. What is it about him that impresses you the most?
No, his personality, his character. Caleb's one of the best men that I've ever met in my life. A man of integrity, a man of honor. What's that?
Why is that? Why is he one of the best men you've met in your life?
A man of integrity. He's a man of honor. He's a man of his word. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a brother. He's a son, and he's the best at all of them. And he's got a huge, huge heart, and it's with everything that he does. When he loves hard, and when he fights hard. When he hates hard. He's extreme in everything that he does. There's no middle ground for Caleb. It's either all the way up or all the way down. And again, I think that and that translates over into the ring, and you can see that even how he fights. His style is there's no middle ground for him. He's either going to be dominant or he's going to go out on his back. But we haven't seen that yet, so I don't foresee it either.
That's quite interesting talking about Caleb, because I spoke to his coach Justin Gamba, I think it was about 6 months ago, and everyone I talked to who's close to Caleb always rates him really highly. I know people are going to say, oh yeah, that's really obvious, they're part of his team, they're mates. Then I spoke to other coaches about their fighters, and they don't speak as highly, or they kind of speak, yeah, he's doing all right, but everyone close to Caleb, on the other hand, is always really hard on him. Just one thing on your other fighter, Badou Jack, I want to touch on. I know you just mentioned there's upcoming fight. I didn't actually know about that. You couldn't find anything online about that. He was meant to fight his last fight. He got called off because the other guy tested positive. I think was it for 4 different types of steroids?
It ended up actually, the guy's name is Jean Pascal. He's the WBA, or he was the WBA light heavyweight champion. It ended up being 5 tests.
5, wow.
Yeah. And it kept cycling. And the more they kept taking tests, the more he kept coming back positive. So he set the record. He broke the record for the highest performance enhancing drug positive test, I think, in the history of boxing. Very unfortunate. We were looking forward to a great redemption and for Badou to become world champion again. But, Badou, again, is a man of high faith and high, ethics and integrity, and head up. He just said this is how it was meant to be. And, he's been on the side of very controversial decisions his whole life. And at this stage of life, it's just another controversy that he's in the middle of, that no fault of his own. But, and mind you, we anticipated, we had speculated that maybe the first fight they could have dabbled in that. There were people calling us and telling us, listen, man, these guys are, not doing the right thing in camp. So the second fight, we made sure, we agreed with Mayweather Promotions, and they were very adamant, saying we got to get it tested. And look what happened. The truth came out. Just very unfortunate. I
mean, testing for 4 to 5 different steroids. Normally, if it's just one, then they could, it might be by accident. It could have been, just by mistake. But what's going to happen to Jean Pascal now? Is he going to be fined? Because I kind of feel that it's not attempted murder or anything, but in a sport like running or cross country, if you take steroids, you're not trying to hurt anyone. You're just trying to make yourself better. But in a sport like boxing, where people do die and can get hurt.
No, hang on, Fred. Hang on. Let me stop you. First of all, his steroids were taking steroids. So he was juiced to the gills. That's number one. Number two, you said it's not attempted murder. Why isn't it? You just said that if you take it to hit a ball further or to run faster, that gives you the edge. What happens when it's to actually instill and to incur physical injury, brain damage? How is that not? How are you, when you get an edge? That's like taking the padding out of your gloves. That's like hitting somebody with brass knuckles. That's giving yourself a physical advantage over somebody to instill pain and possible permanent injury, if not at least short-term physical injury. So how is that not attempted assault or attempted murder? It absolutely is. It absolutely is.
There was a but coming there. I was going to say but in a sport like, I was going to say the but in a sport like boxing. I was going to generate. Yeah. So what's going to happen now is going to be massive fine, go to prison.
No,
what's going to happen?
So let me ask you this: if you were to bring a gun to a fight, and then you pulled the gun out, and right before you shot the gun, somebody grabbed you and they found out that you've got the gun, and they grabbed you and they restrained you, does that mean that you're free from any kind of murder charges? No, it means that you just didn't have the opportunity to pull the trigger. Much to my dismay and to my shock, Jean Pascal was stripped of his WBA title, which should have been anyway. But I was shocked that he got a 6-month suspension. 6 months.
It should be 2 years.
Fighters anyway in between fight wait 6 months. So he got a slap on the wrist for being the most loaded fighter in the history of boxing. And it was a slap on the wrist. So, it is what it is. Yeah,
I know. Normally for steroids, it's 2 years, and that 5 different types of steroids on top of steroids, it should definitely be maybe a lifetime ban or a lot longer than
absolutely should have been a lifetime ban. Absolutely. And mind you, I have a good relationship with Pascal's management team. I have a great relationship with them. And everybody is shocked. And nobody anticipated it would be that light, but it is what it is. This is not against his team, or this is Pascal himself. He knew what he was doing. His management team had no idea, and I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that the people that were his management team, his promoters, nobody knew what he was doing. That was an inside deal that him and a couple of his cronies inside of the camp knew what was happening, and they ended up getting caught and exposed.
And at least he did get caught. Imagine you didn't ask for testing for the second fight, and he came with that many steroids. But on the other hand, Jack might have smashed him up again because he was doing that in the second half of the first fight. Just one more fight I want to touch in is Vidal Riley. I know he was going to fight on the Mike Tyson Rogers undercard with Jeff Mayweather. Yep. He is trainer, but obviously his back problem. As a prospect, he turned pro in 2018. He hasn't fought in it's over a year now. I think he fought last. It was the start of 2020. I think it's January or February in 2020 where he last fought. As a prospect, he should be very active. Do you know what's going on with Vidal? Do you know when? I know he says he wants to take his career slowly, but do you think he should start having a few more bouts kind of more regularly?
Yeah, and look, Vidal's intent was to start strong. The most important thing, and I applaud Vidal on, is he listened to his body. You know, an injury like that early, boxing is very unforgiving. So if you take a loss, nobody says, yeah, but he was injured. They just say he takes a loss. So Vidal was smart enough to listen to his body and not push through with that. He's recovering. The great thing with Vidal is he's got time on his side. He's young. He's still training. He's rehabbing. And I believe now he's back to 100%. I just talked to him a couple of days ago, and his return to the ring, it'll be in the UK, will be very soon. And he'll pick up where he left off. And, you know, it'll be, and once he starts moving again, everybody forgets about, you know, the time that passed. But what has happened is he's given his body time to fully recover. And that's the most important thing in boxing.
I know, because when you get those injuries, especially early on, it's going to be that niggle and it's never going to kind of go complete. Well, obviously, if he takes the time off, it'll go away. But if you don't take the time off, then they'll keep coming back to haunt you again and again. I mean, once he gets back on track, I think the O2 Arena, Wembley's what, you can get 90,000 in for the forced seating. O2, that's 22,000, I think the O2 is. So yeah, I think we'll be definitely selling out the O2 in a few years' time, which would be quite cool to watch. All right, so thanks so much for your time today, mate. It's great talking to you.
Fred, great job. Best of luck with your channel also.
Yeah, you know that I just want to clear the air. You know the steroid thing. I was going to say but, and then I was going to go into it.
The problem is I can't wait for the butts to come out. So as soon as I hear that, I got to jump in.
Yeah, I understand. It's an awful thing that steroid stuff, because it is a lot of blemishes on fighters kind of parts. But thanks so much for your time today, mate. It's always good talking to you. Thank you.
Brother, I appreciate it. Best of luck with you.